Good evening. And if you're just tuning in, you're listening to 105.3 and 107.7 out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana, to United Public Radio Network, otherwise known as UFO Paranormal Radio Network, or we just like to call it UPRN. And you're listening to The Angel Rock Live. I am one of the hosts here on the network. My name is Lorilei Potvin. I'm a Canadian clairvoyant medium, crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher, and mentor, and registered nurse. I'm also the co-host of one of the newer shows we started this year. It's called The Thing at the Foot of the Bed on Thursday nights. It's from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with my amazing friend. He's so talented. He's also co-host of the show, David Hansel. And he has a huge TikTok channel called The Spirit Experience, also a group on Facebook. He's got a YouTube channel like that. And as you all know, we've got some people in the chat that know it already. You know, we love to involve the audience, and I do too on this show, because if you weren't here, I was just saying this to my amazing guest, I will introduce in just a second. I was so excited she's coming on. We'd be doing this on our own, so I really appreciate all of the support that you give to both of my shows and to the network. So if you want to join in the chat, the best place to go, I apologize ahead of time. Right up to the last minute, I tried to add it to my Facebook profile, and Facebook decided that no, it was not going to allow me to add it. So where we're streaming tonight, just so you know, we are going to be streaming over on UFO Paranormal Radio on Facebook and YouTube. I'm streaming to my YouTube channel, which is The Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin. Also streaming to my group, Paranormal University. We're on Canada's Most Haunted. We are on UFO Undercover. News on the Flip Side. I know I'm missing one in there, but and we're streaming to my guest's Facebook, I believe, page as well. So there's lots of places to watch. And at the last minute, guys, I usually stream one of the shows, but we are actually on our TV channel tonight on Roku. So if you want to watch over there, I don't have a channel code. But as I always say, sign into your Roku account. You're going to go to the channel store. And I believe, you're looking up UFO space P as in paranormal. And then there'll be a drop-down list. And you're going to click on UFO space paranormal and United Public Radio Network. Two more things. First of all, if you're on Facebook, and don't worry, I will let you know, because otherwise it's hard to tell. But Facebook and StreamYard don't play nice together sometimes. So all you have to do is head over to StreamYard.com/Facebook and give them permission to use your name and your picture. Otherwise, you come up as Facebook user, and I'll let you know. Like I said, you'll see it in the bottom left-hand corner, and then I'll remind you again if you want to sign in. The other option is, if you don't want to do that, you can just add your name after your comment, or you can choose to stay anonymous if you like. Lastly, if you like what you see, please share, subscribe, and like. And also tell all your friends and family. This network's been around for 25 plus years. We have incredible shows streaming to you day and night, 7 days a week. And when we're not streaming, the archive server is running. So there's all kinds of shows, from, say, previous hosts to syndicated shows we still have syndicated hosts. And there's something for everybody on this network. So I can't even go through the plethora of different types of shows we've got. So be sure to share that with everybody. And I'm going to give you guys all a shout out, and I'm going to introduce my amazing guest. So we already have, that's why I sent you guys a message. I seen you chomping at the bit in the chat. I'm so glad you're all here. So we got Z Sun Dragon, also known as Kevin, Michelle from Australia. Let's see who else we got here. Oh, we got JK47 Paranormal Investigations, who is Jonathan. Jonathan's joining me next week on the Angel Rock here. And we actually took some time this weekend. We did an EVP session, and y'all know, if it's me, we're going to have weird crap happen, and it did. Also, I always forget to mention this. I'm well versed in the paranormal. Also, for those of you who don't know, I have featured, it's a tiny part of the story from my previous home. It's on the travel channels. What is it again? Paranormal Survivor, season 4, episode 9, called Demonic Hauntings. Let's see who else we got. Heather Cooper here. Hey, Heather, how you doing? I saw Sherry Hayashi here. She says, hi, Julie. Got Lizzie McLeod. And I'll shout you out as you come in, just to say hi to everybody. Alrighty, let's get to our amazing guest. I just love her. I had Leanne Clark on here with my other friend Debbie Anderson a few weeks ago with those solfeggio tones, 8 of them, 2 who hadn't been previously released to humanity in a very, very long time. Well, Leanne recommended, I needed, as I've mentioned before, I was looking for an animal communicator. And this is the first one that I've had that works with actual earthside animals as well as in mediumship. So let me read her bio. It's quite impressive. And of course, I need glasses, so hang on. So Julie Jeanne Bassett is an animal communicator, pet medium, and energy healing practitioner. She is also a shamanic practitioner. Her passion and her service to humanity is to help resolve physical, emotional, and behavioral issues in their companion animals. Her passion and her calling is to help solve destructive behavior, anxiety, and stress in animals while cultivating a stronger connection between pet parents, I love that, and their beloved companions, and utilizes many different techniques to do so. She works on all 3 levels, which is what we should do when we're doing energy healing. She works on the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual levels, and only does what is requested by the animal companion or as guided by spirit. Over the years of employing these techniques on her own animal companions, she came to learn that other pet parents were going through similar struggles and knew she had the tools to be able to help. And boy, can she help. To be the channel for communication between a pet parent and their companion animal is her calling. There are too many pet parents who are struggling with health and behavioral issues in their companion animals, so she helps them by communicating with their pets and through various energy healing techniques to resolve the issue at hand. Welcome, Julie. I'm so glad you're here. I'm super excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to tell people, I know how we connected. My friend Leanne sent me 2 people, and you were one. Because, and I mentioned it before, my son, Justin, you guys have seen him before. I've talked about him. He's an adult with severe autism. And thank you, Jonathan, for sharing. He said he shared the show to his page. We really appreciate that. So what happened was he has this cat, and my son has this special affinity with most animals, but he's a cat person. And Miss Sophie, or her full name, which is Princess Sophia, that was her name when she was a kitten, started all out of the blue peeing on my son's bed. And it was like sometimes 3 and 4 times a day. I had waterproof mattress covers, was changing it, did a whole bunch of things. And eventually it just kind of seemed to wane off until about 2 weeks ago. And then it started again with a vengeance. Now, being a nurse, obviously I'm not a veterinarian and I do energy healing. I really didn't feel that this was a health issue from what I was seeing, what I was assessing, and what I was feeling. This was a behavioral thing. And as y'all know, both my boys can communicate with animals. I think it's our birthright. But I know I'm getting in my own way. I can do sort of crude communication and I'm working on it, but I was looking for someone who could do what Julie does. And I chose Julie because both these ladies looked amazing, but the one lady seemed to focus more on mediumship, which is a beautiful gift in itself, but Julie does both. And so here we are. She worked with Sophie, and thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate what you did. So let's talk about this. So how did you know that you could communicate with animals?
Oh, from a very young age, we had a dog, and I mean, she was my sister. I was an only child, and so I could always tell what she was feeling. But with the society and things like that, oh, that's just your imagination, stuff like
Of
that. So I
course.
shut
Yeah.
it off.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was working a corporate job. This was probably about 5 or 6 years ago.
Right.
When I had back surgery. 2 weeks
Oh,
after the
wow.
back surgery, I had a pulmonary embolism, and I nearly died. So I decided I did not want to go back to that stressful job, and so I started taking some animal communication classes as well as a class in integrative nutrition and one on transformational um, coaching.
Okay.
And the one that really stuck out to me was the um, animal communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing that ever since.
I love it. I love it. Now, it's interesting that you said as a child, your dog was basically your sister, and I love that you use pet parents, because not everybody's an animal lover, and I always say it's not my job to judge, but I'm very suspect of people that really dislike animals. And again, I don't try to judge. It's just I think that young children and animals live in the now, right? And especially with animals, I really believe that animals are our earth angels. I always say we don't get the pets that we want necessarily, we get the pets that we need. What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, they're here to teach us, they're here to guide us, they're here as our guardians. Some are our catalysts, because they'll help motivate us to do something that we weren't necessarily going to do.
Right.
Sometimes they're a bridge between something else. You know, and since you're with the paranormal, dogs
Not
are
by
more.
choice. Not by choice. I think that was my reintroduction into what I do now. I had it around me my whole life, and I just didn't realize. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I wanted to throw that
No,
in.
no, that's perfectly. But dogs are more our protectors in the physical,
Mm-hmm.
and cats are more protectors of our um, in the astral.
Okay.
So
I don't
they
mind
help.
using Sophie even
They
and
help
what we went
protect us
through to
from
talk
spirit.
about if you want to, because it'll make it more real. We went, not that it's not real, but it'll be a good example if you feel you need to use. I forgot to mention that before the show, because the way Sophie interacts with my son, and he had a previous cat he had gotten for his birthday, Mocha, and I had never seen a relationship between a human being, and he was a child when I think he was about 11 or 12 when he got her. Like, she and I was going through a divorce, and my son was okay with a divorce, it seemed, but he would say when he would go to his dad's for overnight once in a while or something, the cat would not leave his room. She'd just sit there and wait. Like, even if it was, say, a weekend, she would wait. And then when he would be there, my son's not particularly verbal. He can speak and have a conversation, but he just seemed there was a connection. Like, he would say Mocha, and the cat would start meowing with him. Like, they were literally, you could tell they were connecting. And then Mocha died very suddenly. She was only 3 years old. She had been to the vet many times, not for health issues, but she had been spayed. We had regular checkups and the whole bit. And I remember our bedroom was in the basement with my partner I'm with now. And she was bonking her head on our bedroom door because she wanted food. So my partner Dell got up with her and fed her. And I kind of woke up, didn't think much of it. And then next thing I know, I hear, Mocha, what's wrong with you? I just fed you. And it was about a half hour later. And that cat let out such a scream. I jumped upright and bolted out the door. I just knew there was something wrong. And she was kind of just a little bit of foam. So in my being a nurse, I knew, oh, there's something cardiac going on or something like this. So as I'm going up the stairs and this poor baby is screaming, my kids woke up, and it was Justin that said, Mommy, she can't walk. And when I put her down, I noticed as I was putting her down, her feet were cold, her back feet. So I do have a couple apps, and I looked it up and I went, oh God, please, this is the time I want to be wrong. And it was something called a saddle thrombus, or a blood clot, I guess, that goes down the main artery into the legs. It can happen if there's an arrhythmia. And I had to bring her in and she was gone, but it was so devastating to Justin. And he's a big guy. He lost 70 pounds and really had a difficult time. And I'd love to know, when there's something like that, like what do you get from spirit about those kind of things? Like, I really tried, maybe I'm too close to the situation, but I kept thinking, what was that teaching him, maybe about that we live forever in spirit? That I don't know, because to try and explain to a child with a disability about death, and how quick it can be and how sudden, I don't know, maybe have some words of wisdom.
Well, I know a lot of times animals are on their own journey, just
True.
as we are.
Hmm.
And so sometimes they are only here for a little while because that's all they signed up to experience.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Hmm.
And so my guess is that Mocha decided that, for this lifetime, she was going to serve as a bridge
Okay.
for Justin and this other cat to kind of be until this other cat was ready to be with him.
Hmm.
And I'm getting chills right now.
And
But
he didn't want her. It was my eldest son and I. We were only going to get one kitten, and we fell in love with the two. So we took the two of them home, and Justin wanted nothing to do with her at first. Sorry, I didn't mean to stop you, but go ahead with the chills.
no, I mean, but that, sometimes animals come in kind of as a surrogate, I guess,
Hmm.
until the one that's supposed to be along the path with your son is there and can be with him.
Yeah, because he had a hard time, like to lose 70 pounds. Like, I mean, he really had a hard
Yeah.
time. And it gets to the point now, and he's so terrified of death. And to be able to try and have a conversation with him, like I swear to you, I could have a hangnail. And he was, Mommy, you're not going to die, are you? And, I've tried to have a conversation at an appropriate level with him about death and that we never really die. And, but maybe
Yeah.
it'll evolve eventually. But I know he's had such a hard time with that.
I believe Mocha's still with you.
I do too.
So,
I do too. Michelle shares, I'm afraid of dogs. I always have been around dogs. However, I was bitten by a nasty dog, very leery now. And that's how my partner was. He has this energy that animals either like really are drawn to him. But as a child, he would get scared because they'd come up to him, and then he got bit 6 times as a kid.
oh,
So he
wow.
is not crazy about, but I know no matter where you go, like even fishing, like he'll go in a fishing tournament and he'll put them back. Like he's not out to just fish and fish, but he's cleaned up, say if he's gone with his mother and they are in a tournament, and of course they're not going to waste the fish, they're going to eat it. And it doesn't matter. Like I've seen it. I've been with him 15 years, and it doesn't matter what it is. We have this little skunk that is coming around, and he'll say shoo shoo, and the little guy will start trotting right over. Like I don't know what it is. And like I said with Michelle, so have you got anything from spirit? Because there's a lot of people I have met that have had a very, I mean, that's scary when you're little and you get bit. You carry that your whole life.
Most definitely. And, a lot of it depends on the animal because, sometimes kids are, want to go pet the dog and the dog is kind of reacting to that because it's like, whoa, I haven't been around kids. I don't understand what's going on.
Hmm.
Um, but also sometimes it can remind them because animals can get PTSD just like humans can. And
Hmm.
sometimes if there was a traumatic experience that they experienced either in a previous life in this incarnation or a previous life in a different incarnation, something can trigger it. And so I've had cases where the dog recognized
Energy.
energy associated with his owner.
Hmm.
Sometimes they have cords that need to be cut. Sometimes
Okay.
they have, to past lives to kind of forget about where they were hurt in the past, where they were traumatized in the past.
Hmm.
Um, but, and sometimes, because we all reincarnate as well. And sometimes, and we keep living these different roles until
Right.
we all
Absolutely.
heal. And
Hmm.
so sometimes I've had it where a man was a reincarnation of the guy that abused that dog previously. And
Oh,
that
okay.
dog didn't want to have anything to do with this gentleman. And, it was a very sad situation because the guy really loved the dog and stuff like that, but the dog said, and they basically had to rehome the dog.
Hi, Roger Blair. He says, howdy from Eastern Kentucky. Because I'm going to read Michelle's. She said, yeah, I'm pretty sure dogs sense my fear now. She said, I'd never met this dog. I was just walking past and found out later it had been put down. I'm guessing because it bit her. And she has a sad face there. So, yeah, because it seems so. Of course, we can't answer for every animal, just like we can't answer for every person. But it was just interesting. Like I said, my own partner, and it's a really funny story because when we were friends, I'm going to get back to Michelle's comment. I remember my kids were getting off the bus, and I had to run out and get something, and he was hanging out at my house, and I had five little dogs at that time, and he was okay with them, but so I went out and I was gone like 5 minutes. I got home before the kids came home and he was on my couch, but he was sitting on the back of the couch almost like going like, what's wrong? He goes, your dogs just went crazy after you left. I go, well, describe crazy. Like, what do you mean? And he said, I guess what they did was they all rushed up to him on the couch and they started barking. And of course, I know what that meant. They wanted to go outside, but we didn't know each other well enough. And I'd never thought to tell him, hey, if I'm out, my dogs run up to you and they bark. They want to go outside. So he was petrified. So he was sitting on the back of the couch.
Better, they wanted attention.
Probably, but that was their thing. I had, there was 2 Westies. I had 5. It was 4 of them. Sorry, because we hadn't had the first shepherd first. So it was 2 Westies, or those, for people who don't know, they look like little white Scotty dogs. And I had a Shih Tzu, and then I had a little Chorky, a Chihuahua Yorkie. She kind of looked like Benji, that dog from the 70s, more than anything. And but Michelle says, I know, like she said, she'd never met this dog walking past, and found out later years he was put down. But she said, not only, okay, so there we go. That's the part that was missing. Not only had this dog bit her, it had bitten a lot of others. And we see dogs like this. So do you usually find when you're working maybe with an animal like that, or dog, I should say dog, is it maybe something to do with PTSD? Because you do see some dogs that get quite vicious. And I've always said, doesn't matter whether it's human beings, animals, or really any living organism, regardless of what emotion, eventually, if it's, say, lower vibrational, you hear people say, oh, that's an evil dog, or they'll call it Diablo or something, right? Like a name. And really, when you break it down, it really boils down to fear, right? We either have fear or love. So have you worked with any dogs like this at all in particular that have a history of fighting?
Yes, I have. And one of them, after I worked with him, was beautiful. He calmed down. He wasn't biting. But I also mentioned that it depends on how you approach the dog, because the dog, if it's approached from behind, it startles him and he's going to snap around and bite.
Right.
And that's what happened. After I'd worked with him and the owners didn't, forgot about what I had mentioned.
Right.
And so it startled him, and it's like, whoa. But it's like, if you approach him from the front slowly, put your hand down so they can sniff it, he'll be fine. And he was for a while. And then all of a sudden, something happened and he snapped.
Was there a root problem, though, to why he started this, or was it all just a fear-based thing that you had to give him time to let him sense you, smell you, and not come from behind?
There was a past life.
Okay.
I believe this dog was part of a dog fighting ring.
Okay.
And had been abused and things like that. I mean, this poor dog had been through so much. And he was trying to work through it, and he was having a hard time. Something like this might take more than one session, because when it's kind of like peeling an onion, once you remove one layer, another layer shows up.
Right. Like human beings too, right? Because I do energy work, and I find when I have a regular client that comes, we really get a lot of work done because crystal Reiki, and I keep saying this, I've said it a million times, and Spirit keeps reminding me, I need to do a video to show people what's involved, but you work with people's chakra system or energy system. For people listening might not know what that is. But also you get into sort of, I can usually tell when someone comes to see me, once you go through the energy system or chakra system, is whatever they're coming to see me for, there's usually some imbalance in there that needs balancing. Like you almost know what ones are going to show up. And speaking of chakras, because we talked about this with Sophie, but before we get into that, I want to add, like, Sophie had a little hiccup. Like it was gone. Like immediately I noticed a difference after Julie worked with my cat. I'm not kidding, folks. Like she was calmer. She's a very shy, likes to hide. Like if you came to my house, you'd never see her. Never, ever. Like I can tell you my son's fiance, they've been together 4 or 5 years. I don't think he's ever seen her. Like just, she wants nothing to do with people. And of course I respect that. She's very loving, very sweet. But it was like it stopped right away, the urination, and we got into a little bit of why, and you did quite a bit of work with her. And then she had a little hiccup. But the interesting thing was she tried to do it again last Wednesday night. And I asked Julie today about it, actually. And my son Justin woke up Thursday morning and couldn't walk. He couldn't weight bear. So again, I don't think I'm a doctor, everybody, but with a nurse, you kind of know enough stuff to assess. So I looked at him, wasn't swollen. He couldn't remember injuring the ankle. Eventually found out he did bang it on his wood frame. It took him a couple days to tell me. But anyways, there's just a little tiny bruise. But I had an old boot cast, like the ones that are like a balloon. I'm telling people this for that are listening, Julie. Sorry, I know I probably explained this to you. And I put it on him. And all of a sudden I noticed we haven't seen Sophie anywhere. So I said to Justin, have you seen Sophie? And he's told me as a young child, both my boys have been able to communicate with animals, not on the level that you do with the knowledge base, but they can. And he said, oh, she doesn't like my boot cast. She's afraid of it. And so she did a little piddle the Wednesday night. And Julie, I'd love for you to share, if you're open to it, about what you picked up just from working with Sophie, why that little hiccup happened with another piddle on the bed.
She was trying to get his attention.
And you said almost like a warning too, right? Like a warning to maybe let us know that he had banged his ankle the night before. And again, it's attention seeking, right?
It's alerting you to something is off.
Yeah.
Either
I
with
love
her
that.
or with your son.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, and I thought it was so awesome. But I told Julie after the session that we did, my son Justin had said every time she did it, Mommy, I think she's mad at me because I'm not paying attention, because he was playing his video games. And we cut that. It didn't come up about the video games, but sort of like a little bit of attention seeking too, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the chakra system, you mentioned that in our session. Would you love to share that with people? Because a lot of people probably don't know this. So,
Well, humans have 7 major chakras in their bodies. Animals actually have 9.
Yeah.
One is the brachial chakra, which is all about the human-animal bond. And the other one is the sensing chakra. And you know how animals can hear better than us, smell better than us, see better than us. They have a sensing chakra and we don't. And when the sensing chakra is out of balance, they'll overreact or underreact to circumstances, events, people, things like that. I'm always having to realign the sensing chakra in animals that are misbehaving.
I just had an interesting thought. I wonder why human beings don't have a sensing chakra.
Well, and they probably do.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I was thinking we probably do.
But
we
it's
just
probably more of a minor chakra, because animals can, like I said, can see better than us, hear better than us, smell better than us. And the sensing chakra helps align all of the different senses. Because it's a major chakra, and then we all have major chakras, which are like the core style and old-fashioned radio, and we all have minor chakras. It's like fine
Absolutely.
tuning.
Mhm.
So the sensing chakra can be off, and maybe the dog's going blind, and the eye chakra also needs to be aligned and balanced.
Mhm.
It it can be anything.
You know what I was thinking just now too, and I don't know if spirit gave me this. We can speak, right? So it's almost like when you say, for example, you have a human being, we'll say they don't have use of their eyesight, for example. All of their senses become more in tune. I'm
Right.
almost wondering too if maybe that's why animals are aware of and utilize the sensing chakra because they don't use words like we do as human beings. Does that resonate or does that sound crazy?
Um, well, I mean, dogs have their own language.
Yeah, absolutely. All of them
It's
do.
all telepathic, though. It's all telepathic, and um, dogs speak through barking and making little noises, little growls, and num 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 num.
Yeah. I picked a song for our banner that I put out, and there's a guy out there from France called the Kiffness. Have you seen them before? And what he does is he records the vocalizations that cats make, and he's a musician, and then he turns it into a song. It's gone viral on TikTok, on Facebook. Like I'm sure you must have seen those funny videos out there where cats literally sound like they're speaking with their vocalizations. So
Yeah.
he's got one called I Am the Big Billy, and he recorded, or somebody sent him a recording of the cat vocalizing, and it literally sounds like he's saying, I am the Big Billy, but obviously meowing. And then he takes it and adds like a drum beat to it, and then he adds music in the background. It's I thought it was awesome actually. So, so Michelle added butt sniffing because that's a like that's a greeting, isn't it, with dogs? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
I just had a thought too. Like I said, I told you before, and I tell my audience all the time, I connect with spirit before, and I just say, I always tell people, guess it's just a conversation. And spirit always knows either who's going to be watching and listening or will watch and listen on the replay. But no, I lost my train of thought here. I'll keep talking. It'll come back as I'm rambling away here. Um, oh, I know what it is. So I believe, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, that there is a cat race, the Lyrians, and then you look back through history, and we actually had a dog race. Have you heard of those before?
I've heard of the cat, the Lyrans. Yeah, I've heard the cats. I wasn't aware of the dog. Right.
Yeah, like, well, I think the reason why it's come up through history when you really do some digging and researching is because of, again, having the paranormal and being aware of it too, that there's the dogmen that are coming through that people are now seeing.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, so I think people were wondering, like, where are they coming from? Why are they here? And we're talking, I think this is even before the birth of Christ. Don't ask me how somebody found out. Did they remote view it? Were they, you know, translating cave drawings? I'm not sure. But some of the things that I've seen were they didn't mix with people. They didn't speak with, like, say, Homo sapiens, human beings, but they would have their own language and they would live in colonies, like sort of off in the mountains or wherever, but they were upright on 2 feet, but they would have like a dog head, almost like a human body, and then almost like a dog tail.
There's also an avian species too.
Oh, yes, there is. You're right. And bug
The
too.
blue avians. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, so who knows? So have you ever been able to ask spirit or animals, like, where do they come from? Are they just gifts from source, or are they from like an alien race descended, or?
I have never asked.
Mhm,
It's interesting. Now, I did ask a cat one time about
mhm.
reincarnation because this
Okay.
was uh, because this cat had originally been a feral cat,
Mhm.
and she kind of blew me away because she said, we all start out as feral. They all start out as wild cats, and then they end up being feral cats or house cats. And then eventually, as they evolve and, learn new things, they can upgrade to becoming a domestic house cat.
Oh, so what happens when you take a feral cat, and I've seen it done by somebody that's very loving and very patient and very respectful of a feral cat. And I was just watching a story. She said it took a good year and a half, and eventually she filmed it when the cat came in the house. And at first it had a little bit of difficulty, but then to today they are best of friends, this cat and her. And he absolutely adores human touch and cuddling and what. And we see that. So do they upgrade, I guess, basically in that particular
With each carnation, they have the choice of being a feral again or starting to ascend into being a house cat and a spoiled,
So would it be an ascension though? Like this lady actually had a feral cat living out in the wild that she happened to come across,
It's
and
part
by
of
feeding
all
it.
part of their plan,
Okay.
part of their journey.
Okay. So they can though. So they can. Well, I shouldn't ask can they? Yes, they can, because I think that animals are so much more highly evolved in certain ways than humans are, because when we run into people like yourself that can have these kind of conversations, it's absolutely mind-blowing, isn't it, with the amount of wisdom and information you can I guess achieve or receive in a conversation, if you can do that, right?
Right. And all dogs ended up coming from wolves
Hmm.
and eventually evolving to different breeds of dogs and becoming more and more domesticated as, you know, with each incarnation. So it's pretty cool. And I've had a horse or a dog one time that, this was a funny story, watched the show Mr. Ed about
Okay.
the talking horse
Hmm.
and decided, I want to come back as a horse. And so
A
he did.
horse?
He had a companion dog, and and the other dog decided, no, I don't want to be a horse. And so, but they both incarnated in the same um,
Oh,
incarnation. And so this horse had this dog pal and was really sad when the dog passed away because horses live a lot longer than our dogs do.
yes, you do.
And so it's really sad. And so I helped with the grieving of the horse and, um, he started feeling better after I had worked on him and given him some, removed all his stuck emotions and things like that. And but it was so funny though because he started singing, you know, the theme song to Mr. Ed, and he says that's how we met, or that's how I decided I wanted to come back as a horse.
Really? Because you see this, right? And beings think it's so miraculous when you have, notorious animals that don't get along. Or this is putting humanizing it, and then you get pictures of these exact opposites, like a man-eating, they'll call it a man-eating whatever, right? Like a cheetah or something, and then it's cuddling with the pet duck. Say they're on a rescue farm or something, right? And people can't understand that, but that kind of lends. Now, I'm not saying that happens in every situation, but it kind of makes a little bit of sense, doesn't it? Maybe they knew each other in another
Absolutely.
life. So I'm going to ask you the age-old question of what everybody wants to know or asks, and I've heard various answers of it. I don't think there's right or wrong answer, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Can human beings ever have incarnations as animals or vice versa?
I believe they can.
Good. Okay, I do too.
Um, in fact, I found out I had a previous life as a tree, so we can come back as trees or plants too.
Yeah. Well,
But we eventually evolved to be human.
okay, because that's what the answer I think is too, because especially if you get into the work of Dolores Cannon, for those that may not know of her, she was a hypnotherapist and started back in the 60s with her husband. And they went into levels of the omega levels and things like that that they were told never to enter into when they were doing hypnotherapy, but her husband and her did. And eventually, she was a fascinating lady. And I know that her daughter's continuing her work and teaching people how to do these levels of hypnosis. But she, like, I'm actually going through the audiobook right now that Dolores, who always said she was never psychic or a medium, but she would find certain people to work with and connect on a level in hypnosis that they were no longer the person they were in this incarnation. And I'm reading or listening to the audiobook of her working with Nostradamus and things like that, right? And she was taught, there's a reason why I said this, but I remember in one of the she would go and do talks. And in one of the talks, she said she had people in their sessions that would come through and talk about being here at the creation of this planet, like literally a dust speck coming here to be part of it. So if we're here to learn, and this is an earth school, right? And I do believe there's more souls waiting in line to come here. And I always say, you know, we're all meant to be here, as I know you all know this, but you know this, Julie, but there may be people listening that may not know this, but we're here to learn. And when you're eternal and immortal, and should you choose, you're going to experience everything, right? So it doesn't just mean that as a human to me. What do you think?
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, we've all had dark experiences before,
Mm-hmm.
as far as we've all been, you know, murderers and
Mm-hmm.
all these other things that, you know, I wouldn't want to be now. Um, you know, I wouldn't want to come back as a serial killer, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's just to give us experiences, different experiences, so we can learn and grow and expand and you know, see both sides of things.
Exactly. And, you know, that's the thing too, that I say kind of sucks, because we all come in with this, I always say spiritual amnesia, if you will. I've heard other terms of it. So most of us don't remember our past lives. But if you were a serial killer in a past life, because people think that karma is payback, and that's not what it is, right? When you're here, and to put it in simpler terms, if you're not in service to others and coming from a place of love and kindness, and we're human beings, so there's human emotions and stuff involved, but really nasty or mean things or whatever we do to others creates more karma. But say we come into the next lifetime, we don't remember that we created all this karma. So a lot of people may be going through some things, experiencing it from the opposite side, right? Like if you created a lot of pain and whatever for somebody in one lifetime, you may sort of have to experience it from that side, then the next. What's your thoughts about that?
Most definitely, I
Mhm.
believe that, and that's why we come here to learn, because we're here to make different choices and
Yes.
change the outcomes.
True, and get to know what that feels like. I've
Mhm.
studied near-death experiences for over 40 years, professionally and personally, and I believe I had one as a toddler, and my co-host David had one as an adult. And looking, you get such wisdom, or from people that channel, or from people like yourself, because you do shamanic practice as well, which I'd love to talk a little bit about. But before we do, I'd love to address or get your thoughts on this from Michelle. You got some great questions in here. All of you do all the comments. Michelle says, I thought trees are wiser than humans, and then she added, maybe trees are at a different level. What's your thoughts?
I also believe trees are at a different level. I mean, they have a root network that's connected into Gaia, And
I
Gaia,
was going to call Earth Gaia, but most people don't. That's why I call Gaia Earth too. Sorry, I had to throw that in there. Sorry.
I mean, trees are rooted into Gaia. And a lot of trees are interconnected through their root system. So one will be, if one is sick, the others will nourish them through their root system. I mean, it's just amazing just hearing about trees. So I do believe they are on another level.
Well, I love it. I love that video out there. There was a woman, I don't think she was on a spiritual journey, not that she has to be, but something gave her the idea. And I forget what she connected to her sunflower plants, and she recorded it. And it sounds like they're singing some of the most beautiful music, and we can't hear it with our human ears. I wonder if animals can hear plants and trees singing. Has any animal ever shared that with you?
I can't say that they have, but I think I'm going to ask them next
Well, I
time.
was just, I have the weirdest questions that go through, and I don't know if they're coming from spirit or where, but that's why I love these conversations, because it's not scripted and it's whatever people are asking, or I get these questions because I'm just truly so fascinated and love to hear about people, but especially the guests that I have on here, and get to learn and know better. Because that would be an interesting question if they have that sensing chakra and they can
And
hear and smell
right.
and see better. And yet this woman picked up the song of a whole field. Like I believe she lived on a farm, so she had a whole field of sunflowers. I wonder if they could hear that.
And they very well could be, because it's all about frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the frequency, because dogs hear on a different frequency than we do. And that's why a lot of dogs are scared when it rains, because the raindrops are so much louder for them. It's like, you know, an explosion going off, because their ears are so
You
sensitive.
know what you just made me think of? You didn't, but I'm thinking. When I try to explain to people what autism is, and no, I don't feel it, but being empathic and the fact that I carried that child for 9 months, and I'm not saying I know everything about autism, I don't. And there's many other factors with it. But I always explain to people, imagine you're in a doctor's office and you're sitting on the chair. You don't know when the appointment's coming, but there's a bunch of kids running around and there's a baby crying and maybe somebody's drifted off and they're napping and snoring. And as you're sitting on the chair, you feel every seam in your pants and your clothing, and maybe it's itchy. And then you hear every noise, even the fan in the back room. And, the lights are fluorescent and there's these funny smells. And so basically, there's no filters.
Yeah.
And you wonder why people have autism, or sorry, have a meltdown, even if you have high functioning autism. Can you imagine? It's just like one more straw. And I keep thinking, to dogs, like you just shared, rain sounds like an explosion. I wonder how they manage that. Have they shared that? Because that's a lot of stress.
And that's why a lot of times dogs don't want to go out in the rain.
And all of us think it's because they don't want to get wet.
And sometimes it's that too, but
Mhm.
most dogs love to go swimming in
I
the
was just thinking
pool,
that, or jumping in a lake,
but
or.
they don't want to go in a bathtub.
Mhm.
So it just depends on the animal and what they like, what they don't like, because they have their preferences just as we do. They have their, you know, I also believe autistic kids are very psychic.
Yes, my son is.
Um,
Both of
and
mine are.
yeah,
Mhm.
and I think that's why they are not understood as well, because society doesn't kind of condones it in a way and isn't real receptive to psychic abilities.
Yeah, don't we know that? You know how I found out, and I don't want to make it sound like my kids are so special. I believe it's sort of our birthright. I believe that's part of my mission. Not that I'm going to change the world, but to share with you, people that we're capable of so much more than we've ever been taught taught or led to believe or understand if we just be open to the experience, because we are capable of telepathy and telekinesis, and there's so many things we can do, and it's overcoming the hurdles of ingrained beliefs that we've been taught from
Right.
birth, right? And if you're open to it, you may need a
All the
mentor.
limiting beliefs we
Mhm.
ended up with from our parents and from, um, our religious beliefs, and that didn't believe in any of this. And, it's,
Well, the way I found out my son was psychic was that I never wanted to change him, but he wasn't verbal till he was almost 6.5. And he was very aggressive. He wasn't mean to people. He wouldn't walk up to you and hit you. And I believe a lot of the things that I've helped me cope with things were from spirit now that I know. And I always say behavior doesn't happen out of the blue. Just because you didn't see or you don't know what caused it. There's always a reason why somebody does something. And for my son, I knew there was a reason, and as well, he had a lot of anxiety. So I remembered I was very open to trying a lot of energy healing techniques with him, even before I knew, sort of rediscovered my gifts. I was very open to that. And I brought him in for a session when he was about 3 with, it was a quantum touch, or it was Q, I forget, something Q. Anyways,
QHHT maybe.
no, because that's what Dolores does. It was called quantum. Oh God, I just lost it. It was basically an energy healing session,
Okay.
and the woman tried for an hour with him, and she came in and spoke to me, and she said, "I have never ever encountered somebody so powerful through their third eye. Your son will not allow me through in any way, shape, or form." And then she said, and I don't know what it is with his aura. She said, it is the most incredible royal blue color I've ever seen. So the first question I asked was, well, what does that mean? And she said, I don't know. I've never seen it before. And then I had a very, very astrally connected um, woman come to my house to try and help with the paranormal situation. And I watched the most miraculous thing happen between my son and her, because eye contact can be very painful for people with autism, right? If they're trying to hear or just they avoid it. So he wasn't looking at her, but you could tell they were having a whole conversation between the giggles and the smiles and the laugh and the whole bit. And then she shared some information. And that's why it's so powerful to have people like yourself who can be that bridge for pet parents and people to better understand animals and who they are and why they're here. Definitely. So is there, before we jump into some of your shamanic stuff, I want to share Michelle's comment. And then I wanted to ask you if there's any, oh, we've got another comment, because I'm wondering too, if there's anything you'd like to share with people, maybe that could help them besides working with yourself and connecting with you, but also that they may be able to do to better facilitate communication with their pets. But I'm just going to address these two comments. So Michelle also added, um, so every living being is here for lessons on a different level: animals, insects, plants, and humans. So what's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Now, all sentient beings, even like the mosquitoes and things like that, have knowledge to share.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some are here to be a food source
Mm-hmm.
to a larger animal,
Right.
and so that is their purpose. And so they are ecstatic when they get to nourish another living being,
Mm-hmm.
and they can be that nourishment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which kind of blew me away when I found that out, but it does make sense.
I was told that before by one of my mentors, and she did some animal communication, but she had said, you know, we as humans, and especially those of us that are really, really in love with animals, and we get more outraged sometimes when we see animal abuse than we do, say, even towards our fellow man. And it wasn't said with judgment, but she said it's almost an agreement that an animal knows that they may be here to provide nourishment, like you said, for another animal or a human being.
Right.
Would you agree?
And yeah, absolutely. And they're proud to be of service in that way. That's how they are in service. And that's how they, they live their lives. And, animals don't worry about the future. They are always very present
In the now, right?
day to day. Absolutely. Absolutely. And they don't fear death like we do.
You're reading my mind. I was just going to say that they don't.
I mean, it's just a transition for them. And it's like, oh, good. I'm going to, transition today. I'm going to go back and, you know, be just spirit for a little while before I reincarnate again. And it's like, it's just like, okay, well, let me take off my fursuit and,
That leads me to one more question. I still want to address this. I got so many questions. Is it possible, and I think it is, but I'd love to hear your thoughts, that an animal can come back to you? Because I can tell you, I've had two in my life but the weird thing is, two of them that look identical to what each other look like even behavior, everything. It's a cat. The other one is a dog. Now, the first incarnation, and I can show pictures, they look identical. The first one, she was very nasty, very stubborn, didn't have a problem with me. She bit my first husband every day we were married, like bit him, like just hated him. And she didn't want to listen to anybody. She was very spirited, we'll say. It gave me a lot of laughter in my teen years. And then I was heartbroken when it was her time to leave. And then the Chorky I mentioned, Miley, she was supposed to be one of these tiny, tiny little peanuts. And she looked just identical to Tiffany, who was the one that was very spirited. There wasn't a mean bone in that dog's body. She never, ever did. And I'm probably going to cry. I don't cry very often. Sorry. She was just so sweet. And it was like they were exact opposite. But I swear they seemed like both the cats, but especially these two dogs seem to be almost the same incarnation. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Most definitely, dogs can come back. I mean, we set agreements with animals.
Mm-hmm.
When we create our blueprints and things like that, we make contracts with different animals and different people on, okay, well, I want you to be my sister in this life so that you can teach me X, Y, and Z. And Fido, I want you to come back as, I want you to be my dog, but then I want you to come back later as a cat, and you can make agreements with these animals even while they're still here and say, I really want you to come back. It's all about setting your intention, and says, I want you to come back as an English bulldog from this breeder or from this shelter. I want it from 6 months from now. I mean, and just let it go. And it's miraculous how it will happen.
You know what? You just helped me understand. Thank you, Michelle, for what you sent. She sent rainbows and hearts. It kind of just made me realize that in that time when Tiffy, as we called her, Tiffany, I think I understand it now and I'm getting in my own way with animal communication because I'm very clairaudient. I hear spirit all day, connected, the whole bit, right? And you just helped me understand why Tiffany was her full name, came to me when she did, when I was a young teenager, and probably much more spirited myself. Maybe my energy well, not quite the way hers did. But then when Miley came into our life and I had children, then she served a different role.
Absolutely.
That made a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Sherry says, I've had a cat come back after passing. I ask you this because I understand that we all receive different things from spirit. And I always try to remember it's not my job to judge. And even when I do a reading, I say to people, take what resonates and leave the rest.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it never made sense that because I've been told by people, no, your animal can never come back to you. They can never return to you. Never, ever, ever. You won't see them until you go back home yourself. That's it. They got one lifetime
I've
here
had
with you,
cats
and that's it.
return as well. In fact, I've had a cat return.
Okay. Okay. That it didn't make sense to me. It just didn't make sense. Yeah. Hmm. So you had a cat return? Sorry, I stopped you there.
Yeah, I had a cat a little bit. It was a boy cat,
Hmm.
and he passed when he was 21.
Hmm.
And then I got Rosie,
Okay.
and Rosie was my big girl. She was like pleasantly plump. She was 20 pounds. She would not go on a diet,
Mm-hmm.
even though I told her for health reasons she needed to. She says, I'm pleasantly plump and I'm just happy this way. I like my food.
So how can you argue with that? Because we feel that way. There's a guy that, oh, I forget what his name is. He's got a very unusual name, and he's got a comedy routine, and he's talking about the cat that they adopted from a rescue named Jessica. And Jessica was a big girl too. And so the vet said she had to go on a diet. I'm not going to do this joke justice, but he basically said that so they put her on this diet food and she hated it. He said, and every night she would come and stand on his head and get in his ear and go, wow. And then his punchline, something to the effect of, was, I agree with you, Jessica. It's time this diet's over. Let's go fry you up some bacon. But,
Yeah.
we're putting human things on it, right? Like you said, an animal knows what they're here for and what their purpose is and how long they're going to be here. So I love that you shared that answer that she said, I'm perfectly happy the way I am, right?
Definitely. And I mean, that's a lesson for us humans too, because, there's so much in society now where, you know, people are overweight and they need to lose weight. And, there's so much pressure to be this perfect size. And it's like, that's not normal. I mean,
Mm-mm.
look at all the sculptures of all these ancient people. They're all overweight and have the curves and things like that. We aren't all stick figures with 0% body fat. That's unrealistic.
I was anorexic. I don't share that often, but I had, not to the point that I was near death, but I was skin and bones when I was about from 17 to 19. And then why? Because, right, yeah, then you don't really know who you are and you're kind of trying to figure it out. And you're getting all that would have been probably around the time when this waif thing was on with all the magazines. And I'm never meant to be a size 0. I'm like 5'9" and have bigger hands and feet than my brother. Like, I'm big Bo. I'm going to be who I'm going to be. Michelle
Absolutely.
said, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, absolutely.
Mhm. So I kind of like, though, that we're shifting a little bit with because people always look at what's in the media, and we're seeing some larger size people out there promoting, you know, as long as you're healthy and you're exercising and even if you're not healthy, you're here to be here for what you're here to be here for, right? Like, we have a
Right.
purpose. Hmm.
And, maybe it's something that you're trying to work through
Hmm.
from a previous life. You know, we don't know. It's just making different choices and being as healthy as you can be at the moment.
Well, I have a friend that was on here a couple of weeks ago, Debbie. Her husband, Chris, used to be a police officer. Now he does past life and future life regressions with human beings. And, it's so interesting when we get into carrying energy from past lives that no longer serves us in this lifetime. Like, it resonates with me when he's talked about it, phobias that human beings carry, that he can usually tell, and he never tells somebody what comes up in a past life. They would we'd share it under hypnosis. But like he said, people that are claustrophobic or can't stand wearing a turtleneck or something around their neck, he goes, it usually will come up under hypnosis that they're clearing something from being hung or
And
decapitated.
same with shamanic healing too.
Oh, let's talk about it then. Let's talk about it. Mm-hmm.
Well, whenever we're little and we're traumatized,
Mm-hmm.
a piece of our soul runs off into the underworld. And this is
I
what
really want to hear about this because I did have something very traumatic happen to me when I was 5, and I've kind of repressed it. And I've since found out as an adult, some of it, I'm getting flashes of it back now. So I'd really love to hear this. So thank you for sharing this part. I'm sure you're going to help a lot of people with this.
Yeah. But there's different techniques we can do. And this is a soul retrieval where
Okay,
you
yeah.
go back and this little piece of your soul that has broken off and run and hide in the underworld because it's so scared. You go down to the underworld. I would go down to the underworld on your behalf and find out what the source of the wound was,
Mm-hmm.
what contract you signed when you did this wound. There's one I signed where I said, I'm afraid. And so, yeah, of course, I'm afraid of everything. And then the next one, which I've rewritten that one, by the way.
I love it.
And
Congratulations.
then you go to the next chamber, the Chamber of Grace.
Can I stop you for one moment? Could you explain to people what the underworld is and where, because I think there'll be some people who think that that's hell or something. So just so you can explain what you mean within the shamanic practice.
Yeah, the Native Americans or shamanism believes that there's 3 worlds: the lower world, the middle world, which we're in now, and the upper world.
Okay.
The upper world, we can meet our celestial parents, and we can also see what our destiny is.
Okay.
It's really cool.
I love it.
Underworld is where all these contracts are held, all these different pieces of people's souls are held.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not hell. It's just like a different
Dimension. Lower dimension.
A lower dimension.
Yeah.
And, you know, because you can see what the trauma was, you can see what the contract was, you can go see if the soul part wants to come back. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's things that they want you to do for them to feel comfortable or safe coming back. And then there's a chamber of treasures. And the chamber of treasures, you get a gift that comes back with you. And that gift is to help you along your path for you to use, and it's supposed to help you. So, and it's just incredible because I've had people, there's also extractions you can do where I've pulled, okay, on my mom's service or my stepmom's service dog.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on her and I worked on her service dog. Her service dog apparently was a police dog in a previous life, and I pulled some bullets out of his shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
This dog was diagnosed with bone cancer, and has been limping and stuff like that. So I've been using my current techniques as well as adapting my shamanic techniques to animals to try and help him. After I worked on him and extracted those, he quit limping. He wasn't in pain anymore. He didn't need his pain shots. I've had to work on him a couple of times since because every once in a while he'll start limping again or start acting like he's in pain. The other thing is when I originally started working on him, I asked him, well, are you ready to transition? And he says, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, how long? And he says, probably a month or 2. Mm-hmm. Then it went from possibly 2 to 3 months. But I was able to shift his timeline, so now it's almost a year.
Oh, wow.
So I'm just amazed at how powerful this shamanic healing is. Uh, so
You know what, though? I had this conversation with somebody recently. I can't even remember who it was. And I was explaining about, especially with working, I've worked in critical care, and you see on TV people say, okay, we're pulling the plug, somebody's ventilated, right? And then the person has this, they stop breathing, and then you see the monitor stop, and that's it. That's not how real life works, though, right? Like, I had a friend whose beloved uncle was like a father, and he was on a ventilator, and the decision was made to extubate him, we'll say, take the ventilator away. And the doctor had expressed it should only be a minute or two, it'll be very peaceful. And he was still hanging on 2 weeks later. And my friend had said to me, why? Like, I thought this was going to be over. And I said, well, there's many reasons. I mean, he might be waiting to see a particular family member, it could be whatever. But I said, that decision is his and his alone, between him and source, when he decides to leave. And I've met people who have wanted to know or decided that I'm going to die at the same age. Say, for example, my father died. And they've promised themselves that, right? And I've seen people that have done it. I've seen people will themselves to leave, like to die, say their partner's died, they're elderly, and you'll hear about it a week later, the partner's gone. But I've also said, I truly believe that, say they have made that decision, they get to that age, or maybe whatever it may be, right? And then they realize, I still want to stay here, that they could end up staying longer. Where I'm going with this, with the service dog here, right? Like, maybe he had thought it was his time to leave soon. Maybe has he discovered maybe he has more work still to do, or more service, or what was the thought process that you felt maybe that was working with this?
yeah, I think he still has more work that he wants to do.
Mhm. I'm
Uh,
glad you added that he wants to do, because I didn't word that correctly, because, more work to do, it makes it sound like he's got to work more. No, this was his decision, right?
right. And he's been a therapy dog. He's been a service dog for my stepmom.
Mhm.
Um, and it's all about timing. And, you know, the vet had told my stepmom when he was diagnosed, or they suspected bone cancer,
Mhm.
that most dogs only live up to 2 months.
Mhm.
And she is amazed at how well he's doing.
I'm not amazed, having you worked with my own Sophie. You really are incredible with what you do. And then I read in your bio, so we have the shamanism piece. And not that I say, no, we're not going to talk about it, because I think it's a big part of what you do. But also, when we're working in the energy field and working as healers, we have to work with the three elements, right? Mind, body, and soul, or spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you incorporate that with animals? Like, what, because you did some interesting things when you were working with Sophie. There was a triple warmer that you mentioned, and I'm familiar with that terminology from Donna Eden's work.
Yeah,
So,
that's working with the meridian system. That's
okay.
we all have at least 9 different energy systems. The meridian system is one, and the chakra system is another one. And they
Okay.
all have different functions in our body. But the meridians, they store a lot of our stuck emotions, and animals are so empathic. They absorb emotions from people, humans. Humans are people. What am I? Other
I didn't
animals.
even pick that up. I'm just so enthralled here. I'm just soaking this all in.
So they would absorb emotions from their humans that are around them. Other animals, they even will sometimes pull it in from a past life. I've had some animals that are very empathic, and they are so loaded with stuck emotions that once I clear all those out, all their behavioral issues go away. It's just incredible. Um, and I think there's a
The
term for it.
behavior mirrored, like say they're absorbing, right? For people may not understand empathic. Um, So, and I'm not being insulting, it's just this goes out all over the world. So there could be somebody just dialing in, hearing about animal communication, going, what are they talking
Yeah.
about? So
And
do they mimic in behaviors maybe some of the emotions that they absorb? Is that what you see?
sometimes, not always, because animals are trying to always heal us. That's one of their purposes to be here, is so we don't get so um, have too many stuck emotions. They'll take it out of our bodies
Okay.
and take it on themselves, because animals are our mirrors. And a lot of times when the root chakra is out of balance, it's because of stress and anxiety and changes that are happening in our lives
Right.
that is affecting our animals.
I was just thinking about everything you're saying, and it's making so much sense with animals that I'd say I lost two dogs before we left our home, and it was very stressful. There was a lot of stress, and I think one of my older dogs actually. This is going to sound terrible, but I do believe this. He was nearing the end of his life, and I always kept the back door of my old house closed, and nobody was home. And my bedroom was in the basement in the old house. And all of a sudden, I heard, you need to go upstairs and check on Rory. And as I came to the bottom of the stairs, he was tumbling down the stairs. There's no way I could catch him, and that's actually, he didn't die in my arms, but he was peaceful and I kept him comfortable. He hated going to the vet, and he passed away that weekend. Now, I don't know with what was in my house opened that door. It didn't open on its own, but there was no way for him to get down there, or the fact that I literally heard, you need to go check on Rory. Now, I don't know if that was something, maybe how he planned to end his life, but that's really stuck with me. Or, you know, even I lost two more dogs just before we moved, because I said I had five, and Miley was the one that I mentioned, and before that it was Shiloh, our first German Shepherd, and both of them had cancer. And what I understand from cancer can also be a lot of stuck emotions, a lot of stuck like anger, and I mean, I could do a whole show on it, but I'm wondering, with you saying animals being mirrors, and spirit almost showed me almost like sponges, if they don't maybe clear that, it could that be one of the contributing factors of cancer?
It's possible.
Hmm.
I believe a lot of it's due to, because there's a lot more cancer in humans too lately.
Yes. Hmm.
And I think it's more in,
A mirror.
not necessarily mirror. I think it's our environment. And, you know, we've gotten away from all eating all natural foods. And
Agreed.
now we're eating all processed foods and a lot of chemicals in our environment. I think a lot of that is contributing to the cancer
That would definitely make sense.
more than all of our stuck emotions.
Hmm. Oh, stop. She said, this is Stephen Nicole. I mentioned her. She's a little monkey. She loves to come chew on my crystal cord here. And she likes to join me when I do my show. My dog's not in here, otherwise she would be too. So I am really fascinated about the shamanic. So you said you took some courses. I always call it a muggle job, what people think we do, like corporate jobs and stuff. How did you get into the shamanic practice?
Well, I watched one of these free webinars by Alberto Villoldo and his
Oh,
team,
right. Okay. Yeah. I know who
and
he is. Yeah.
I had chills all up and down my body, and there were some other synchronicities that
Mhm.
happened before that. It's like, and that's what prompted me to watch this. And it's like, oh my God, this is what I need to be doing. The spirit is pushing me into this. It's a
Isn't that how weird spirit gives you chills? I always say that I've got goosebumps. It's not cold in here. That's my sign for truth.
Yeah, I'm very clairsentient, and
Mhm.
when I was getting chills all up and down my body
Mhm.
throughout the whole hour-long thing that he talked, I knew I had to do this. And so it's a 6-month course.
Right.
It actually ends, I guess, middle of October, but I
Okay.
am just loving it. I'm learning
So
so
you're
much.
just taking it, but it sounds, don't even think about that. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been incredible. I'm learning so many techniques to help with, you know, helping people with limiting beliefs, helping people with trauma, helping animals. Um, so many incredible tools that it's just amazing.
You know what Spirit was showing me? Because I like just listening to you and the things you were talking about before you just shared this. I mean, it's almost over. Like you said, it's over in October. Is Spirit almost showed me as you were speaking, it was literally this course was just unlocking what was already there. Like it was just opening up the
And
door. Mhm.
and that's what I've been told in the past is
Okay.
that this is all knowledge I already had.
Yeah, that's what they were showing me while you were talking. Yeah.
I was a shaman in a previous life. This is just helping me to remember.
Oh, I love it.
And I'm getting chills right now too. So
Are you? Well, that was that's kind of been a newer gift with Spirit with me is literally they're starting to show me movies. Like I can literally see a movie of something happening or a lot of visual stuff, whereas before most of it was just hearing. And now but that's the beautiful thing about, what I'd love to share with my audience all the time is Julie and I just happen to be in the right place at the right time and opportunity to open that doorway that I believe it's our birthright, all of us, to be able at some time to be able to do some type of healing work or intuitiveness or connect with your guides or spirit or all of this stuff, right? Because we're all one.
yes, most definitely. We're all one.
Mm-hmm. So Sherry, she says, Julie, yes. And then Claire Frazzi, welcome. She says, yeah, Julie. So I'm so glad that you've got some of your people here. We were able to stream to Julie's page. So I'm glad. And I miss Sandra. Sandra is one of our regulars that watches the Angel Rock and my other show. And she says, when I was talking about anorexia, she said I was a walking stick figure as a teenager, but that was just a very fast metabolism. And she said, I'm doing better now. I'm going to add something to that I was always skin and bones too, till I was about 9 or 10. Started to go through puberty, and I've always had to be cognizant of my weight. And I've tried to look at it as a gift because we do meet people that have been skin and bones and our bodies change as we get older, right? And then it's like, oh my gosh, what happened? So I've always had to I try to look back at things that happen in your life, anybody's life, and because there's always a lesson or a gift in it, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Always a lesson or a gift.
Sometimes it just takes some time to look at it. Now, I asked you a question earlier, and then we got off on a different topic. So people are going to be listening and seeing this, and like I say, I strongly encourage anybody hearing and listening. Don't worry, I'm going to let you know where to find her. And I forgot to mention, if anybody's just tuning in, you're listening to the Angel Rock on 105.3 and 107.7 out of New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin, and I have my amazing your gift, the way you are, my guest. Julie Bassett on. We're talking about animal communication and shamanism. But one of the big things I wanted to, well, we got good comments here, but I'm not going to get off a tangent because I think people are all wondering this. What can they do with their pets to be able to better understand them or facilitate some type of communication between themselves rather than what they already have? Because we all communicate with our pets on some level. We do, when your pet wants to eat or your pet wants a treat or your pet wants outside or maybe for a walk or whatever, right? But I mean, maybe on a little bit deeper level.
Um, the best way to do that is you are so connected with your pets
Mm-hmm.
that you doubt the information they're trying to share with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just need to listen
Mm-hmm.
and, clear your mind, make sure you're grounded, make sure that you're hydrated, and just listen and just sit in silence with them. And whatever comes to you, trust it, because they are trying to communicate with you. You know, you can ask them questions and just sit there and listen for the answer.
Can I ask you a question then? Because I've had a few people tell me that animals only communicate in pictures. They can hear what we're saying, but when they want to send you something, it's going to be a picture. And I'd love to hear what is that true basically, or is there other ways to communicate?
Primarily, it's true. A lot of times they'll send you a picture, and that's how I will communicate to other animals. I had this one dog once that would run through an electric fence and would get down to the road and would nearly cause an accident. And so I showed a picture of his mama crying and him being taken away, and says, you know, your mama can't keep you safe if you run through that fence. And she's worried about you. She wants to keep you safe. So this is going to happen if you keep running through this fence. And so he stopped doing it, because he understood the pictures more than what I was telling him.
Yeah, because I understand, as I understand it, because I am taking a couple courses, and sometimes especially my eldest son, now he doesn't communicate on the level that you do, but he hasn't embraced that side just yet, right?
Right.
But he can communicate, and what I've realized is they hear us talking all day long, right? So it's a constant drone because we speak, and so they hear it, and they might hear.
They tune us out. They don't like
Thank you.
small talk.
Yes, but they'll pick up on the important things.
They'll pick up on the important things, especially if you're talking to them.
Yes.
They'll tune everything else out. But if you're talking, and if I ask to see a picture of their favorite toy, they'll show it to me.
Okay.
But they can communicate in other ways. It depends on what psychic abilities or what clairs you have open.
Okay.
Because I have a sense of claircognizance where I just know.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times they will communicate with me that way.
Stephen Nicole here. She was named Stevie. I was never going to keep her. It was her sister, but she chose me. And she must love you, Julie, because she's literally trying to close my computer, rubbing up on it. She was trying to get closer to you. But I'm glad that you added that. So yes, to be open, but people need to know what to look for. So like you said, you could ask a question within the mind's eye, or if you're just alone or you don't mind asking out loud, right? But how are they going to answer? And so they may send you a picture, maybe, or
I mean, start off with something simple, but it's actually easier to talk to another animal, like another dog that you don't really know so
yeah,
well.
I think it would be, yes.
And get your confidence up and start trusting yourself, because your energies are so intertwined with the dog. It's sometimes hard to tell whether that was my thought or was that the dog's thought.
I have to agree, because when I connect with people and do a psychic or mediumship reading, I have to say to them, I just need to know, like, who did you want to connect with, or why are we connecting? And they'll want to give me all kinds of information. I'll say, please, you don't give it to me. The least amount I know, the better. Because once we know, did that come from my subconscious or whatever? So I think you just hit the nail on the head. So connecting with an animal maybe that you don't know, that is open to communicating. We can't just expect any animal to just
Right.
be open,
And
right?
you have to be respectful too, because sometimes, you know, most of the time they're more than willing to talk to us.
Yeah.
But you have to ask. I said, you know, hi, you know, you got to be respectful. Hi, Rufus.
Yeah.
You know, can I talk to you for a minute? And they'll say yes or no. I'm eating right now. Can you talk to me later? It's like, yes, I can talk to you. You got to be respectful. You got to thank them for their time.
Stop. Thank you.
You know,
I know, and I'm glad. I'm so glad that I asked that question because people would hear that, but they wouldn't know what to look for. And I think it's important, like you said, because as human beings, that's half the problem with connection with our guides and our angels. And I always say we're not alone. We're never alone. We came in with a whole support team, and so do animals. But
Absolutely.
once we recognize that, and I was there once years ago, as I'm sure we all are, when am I going to hear my guides? What's their names? What's the names of my angels? And on and on. And the harder we try, though, the more it seems it's difficult. It's like the way Spirit's shown it to me is it's just meant to flow. Like if you try and force it, right? It just doesn't.
Right. And you've got to come from your heart too.
Yes.
So sometimes if you listen to, like, YouTube has a lot of free meditations or free
Hmm.
music. Pull ones out and listen to one for healing the heart chakra,
Hmm.
and just sit there and let it, take away all your, let you get into a mindless state, and then trying to talk to your animal.
Yeah. And I think that's important for anything that we do when we're connecting with spirit, right? It's coming from a place of love, but we forget to be grounded. Another conversation I was having over the weekend was, and it was a big lesson for me, was because we have laws of the universe as well that we can choose to follow and learn about or not, right? We have free will. But
Right.
many of us in this field are empathic. Even those that aren't are empathic, right? You'll hear people say, oh, they'll give you the shirt off their back. Excuse me, I'm going to have to put her outside because she's just wanting to close the computer on us, the little monkey. Okay, you go up there and we'll grab a little snack for you. Okay, come back in. And there's your friend, the dog. They're outside because they think they love, I don't know if it's because spirit's here, because whenever I'm doing readings or stuff of my animals, and I'm sure same for you, they love the energy. um, God, now I forgot my train of thought I was saying there. Um, but I know what it is. But the biggest lesson for me was very good at giving, but not good at receiving. And everything's about balance on this planet, I think. And what's your thoughts on that?
Most definitely.
Hmm.
I'm really good at giving too, and I have a hard time receiving. And I
I
think that's one of my lessons I need to learn in this life.
and mine and boundaries, right? I think they go hand in hand with feeling okay with saying it's okay to say no and no guilt attachment or anything with it, or saying yes to everything and then becoming overwhelmed and stressed.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Yep.
So Kevin says the Sun Dragon chills happen here often too when talking about spiritual things and whatnot. And I love what Michelle said. She said, we all need to dance more. And Sandra shared with the animal communication, because I know Sandra also does some animal communication. She said pictures, emotions, and impressions. So,
And yeah, and I've also felt them. Like
okay.
with my stepmom service dog, my right arm, and it was his right leg, just got really heavy and really hot. I
Mhm.
said, "Is that what you're feeling?" He goes, "Yeah."
Oh,
And by the time I was done, it felt a whole lot better. And it's like, no wonder you were having trouble walking and limping and in so much pain.
when you can feel that, I remember once, and I wasn't planning on doing any energy healing, but it was somebody that was having a very difficult time, and they had said they were in so much pain, they wanted to take their life that night. And this is quite a few years ago, and I spent time with them. And because I had connected energetically, I could feel the pain they were in. It was nerve pain.
Mm.
And so I did some work with them. And I always tell people it's not me. I'm just the mailman. That's all it
Yeah,
is. Not,
channel. I'm just the channel.
yeah, thank you. Better word. And some of the pain was relieved, and strongly encouraged them to reach out to get some help. Thank God they're still here. I don't think that I'm not claiming I'm responsible. What I'm saying and why I shared this story is when we can actually feel somebody else's pain, I don't think we can really understand it sometimes. So it's interesting that the service dog was able to share that with you.
Yeah.
Hmm. I think it gives us a better level of understanding, and you'll hear that often with mediumship. We're almost out of time. Julie, I hope you're going to come back because I have so many questions, and I know the audience is loving this. Could we talk because we have so much to talk about? I hope you'll come back sometime.
Absolutely. This has been fun.
I know, because I want to ask you, because you do mediumship as well. I'm trying to touch on everything that you do because I'm going to encourage people. I'm telling y'all, she's amazing because that's why I asked her after I did the session, please come on my show. So what about mediumship? Because you do that as well.
Yes, I do. Primarily pet mediums, pet mediumship, because when we're grieving a loss of our pets, sometimes it's nice to know that they're okay. And most of the time, the pet parent is feeling so guilty and so sad.
Mm-hmm.
And the animals don't want us to feel guilty. They see the love in our hearts. They know we did the best we could, and they have no regrets. And sometimes it just takes a little time to let them know that, yeah, your pet is fine. I see him, right now playing. He's whole and he's healthy and he's happy. And, he says he's going to send you blue butterflies.
Oh.
And because I had a case the other day where he was going to send blue butterflies.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that can be blue butterflies in nature. It could be the words blue butterfly. It could be a sticker of a blue butterfly. It can be anything. Or a meme with a blue butterfly.
Mm-hmm. I love that you shared that because I'm going to share a quick story. She's not here tonight, but if she was, she'd be okay with it. Debbie, who sometimes is able to pop in here, Debbie Schmoley. This was years ago, and I was chatting with her on Skype. We were taking courses and in the same group at the same time. And it was in her bedroom and she was laying back on her bed as we were talking. And I said, did you used to have a cat that laid right next to you on the pillow? And she says, yeah, why? And I said, I swear to God, I can see him on my monitor right now. He is literally laying there. He just looked at you. He just flicked his tail and he's sitting there grooming. So I took pictures. She has them. I don't. And she says she can see her other cat. And right away she went, oh, that's my Boo. I think it's her was named Boo and had passed away the year earlier. So what do you think all that was about? Because people tend to think, and that's not the first picture I've seen of spirit animals still here. And I believe they've crossed because I believe they can come back, but to visit.
Absolutely. There was a Einstein, which was a Great Pyrenees dog that had gotten lost. As was trying to help find him. Unfortunately, the dog had passed.
Oh,
but because I was so connected to that dog, I felt him near me, and I actually felt his fur brush against my leg and him sit down next to me.
We heard Sophie the night she passed. Justin and I did, and she used to come on his bed, or not Sophie, my God, Mocha, the one I mentioned that
right.
in the show. We heard Mocha that night. Justin and I were walking downstairs together into my bedroom in the old house, and as we opened the door, we both heard her. And then she used to sleep on his bed, and right where she would sleep because he still gets me to tuck him in at night, and she would go and you'd feel a plop and you'd see the indent on the bed.
Yep. I mean, they're still with us. A lot of people don't believe it, but I mean, Rosie's still here with me. She's one of my guides now.
Oh, I love let's touch on that. We got just a few minutes left. So our animals can definitely still guide and be one of our guides.
Absolutely. Einstein's part of my team now too.
I love it.
As well as, I've got a whole entourage of animals that are helping me with this work.
Oh, I love it. I love it because I know I was listening to another animal communicator a few years back, and she she said sort of what you did, that some of her animals that were in animal form here and now in spirit form are part of her team. And there was an animal in particular she was working with that wasn't able to eat. And I think it was one of her dogs that had the most voracious appetite, and made the agreement with this poor dog. He was open to it, and she said he lent his appetite in spirit to this
Yeah.
dog, and it worked. Like, the owner was like blown away. Like,
And I think I know who the animal communicator was that you're talking
I
about.
think you do too, probably. Yeah. Okay. So, Sandra adds, I feel former pets jump on the bed when my cats aren't in the room.
Yep,
So there you go. See?
most definitely.
Oh, and Heather adds, my dog was here to help my father with Alzheimer's. How beautiful is
Oh,
that?
yeah, that's awesome.
Because that's what some people get told, right? And that everybody perceives things differently when connecting with spirit. But, and for myself, I keep saying it 100 times, not my job to judge, but it just doesn't resonate when loved ones pass away. Once they've crossed over, they can't come back. But what I think we're doing is we're humanizing the experience and not realizing there is no space and time on the other side, and we have free will. So if they want to come back for a quick visit or whatever they want to do to be here to help to heal from the other side, they can, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we've got about 3 minutes or so before. Does anybody have any quick questions? Were you going to say something, Julie? I'm sorry.
No, but I'm open.
Well, we'll see if we do here, because I got to have you back on. Like, I think I could do a different show with you on every aspect of the stuff that you do, because I'd love to hear more about the shamanism, because many of the things you were talking about, I already incorporate into my practice with just a different name, right? Um, but I've always been fascinated by First Nation medicine. And the reason why I just found out through my eldest son, actually, he now works with Two Spirit First Nation youth, as well as Indigenous women that need the support. And so he went into our roots and found out that we actually are Métis, which is First Nation in another nationality. I had always been told I was just sort of one level that below that would be recognized. So, and my son, he is very spiritual, my eldest son, and he actually he had a friend that's mom did this kind of work. I remember when he was 14, and she did, with their permission, sort of a guided group meditation. And he was so excited to come home and tell me that he says he had been a wolf. He was telling me about this experience and what he had been. And then just recently, he did a sweat lodge, and about the gifts you were just talking about the whole bit. That's why I can't wait to have you back on and talk more about this. Oh, so
Okay.
Sandra has a quick question. She says, Malamber, my polydactyl. Is there anything you might be able to pick up quickly?
What was the name?
It's on the screen. It's Milamber. I'll give you a minute here. So. And if you can't, that's okay, because it kind of puts you under pressure. I didn't ask this. I asked if Julie was open to this, but I wanted you guys to find out more about her first. Sorry.
Um, all I'm getting, and I don't know why I'm being shown this picture, but of one of those hairless cats.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I also like to know whether this cat is living or dead, because I connect in a little bit differently if they're deceased. Um,
Okay, that's okay, because what I was going to say anyways, Julie, and that's something to explain to people, is too, with mediumship, even like you say, connect a little bit differently. I do too, but I have picked up people during a mediumship. I'm sure you probably have too, and they're still earth side, but they're coming through in spirit. And what we realize is it's actually their higher self coming through, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we are almost out of time. Oh, so, and that's okay. And I know, Sandra, you asked at the last moment here, but we're going to tell you guys how to get a hold of Julie. And she told me, even I didn't know this, she actually does do some free readings in different groups all around on Facebook. And I asked her if she was open to these kind of questions, but I really wanted to find out more about Julie. And so Sandra just added, and then I'll give you a chance to let people know. She says, he's most likely passed or dead. She said, I don't know what happened after I left my first husband. A gray tabby, she said. Maybe he's back here as a hairless. Who knows, right? You never know. Or showing you a past life. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's already reincarnated.
That's what I was picking up. That's why I said that. Sorry, I wasn't trying to jump in there.
And he's reincarnated as a hairless cat.
Okay.
Because I think he had issues, like some skin issues in his previous life.
Well, I'm gonna give. I hate to do this, but we have a show coming on right after. See, I told you it was gonna go by fast. So, if you guys love the paranormal, stay tuned, because coming up right after we're off of here are Julia and Phillips here, Siracusa with the Horsefly Chronicles. So stay tuned. And Sandra said he had a lot of love to give. But I'm going to have Julie back on. I promise, because I've got so many questions. I'm sure you guys all do. Julie, thank you so much for being here. Can you tell people all about you, like where to find you, how to book a reading with you? You said you do readings in groups on Facebook, whatever you'd like to share, if you have something coming up or whatever that is.
My website is juliejeannebassett.com. My Facebook business page is facebook.com/J Bassett Animal Communicator. I do free readings on Facebook in the Light Shine Lab and Merlin's group, generally on the weekends because of my muggle job and other commitments. Mm-hmm. But they're generally an hour long, and I get to as many as I can. You can book a reading through my website or my Facebook business page. There's a link there where you can, contact me and pay and all that. And I do offer free consults. So if you aren't sure what to book, you can request a free 15-minute consult, and I will call you and we can discuss what your needs are.
I know I saw that on your page, but I knew why I was contacting you. So that's why I booked a reading with you. You guys, you won't go wrong with Julie. I'm telling you, that's why I started out with my own experience with her. She's amazing. I'm definitely going to have her back. So maybe we can even do a night if you're open to it, Julie, because you work with a picture, right? Like I know sometimes a picture really helps with communication.
Pictures generally help, but when I'm doing my live readings, there's not an option for a picture. So as long as I have the name, the type of the animal, what male or female, and whether they're living or deceased, then generally I can get some information or send a quick healing for them.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much. And if you guys ever want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me on facebook.com/The Angel Rock. If you got a guest idea, show suggestion, you want to book a reading. I actually haven't done this in a long time. I did a reading this past week where Spirit asked me to go directly into somebody's Akashic records. We actually did it. Usually I pull it all in. It was a pretty cool session, actually. I love when we work with Spirit. It's never boring and always exciting, and they certainly keep you on your toes. I also have two groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for all things paranormal, and the Angel Rocker Tribe for many of the spiritual things like what we talked about tonight. So next week, he was in the audience. He's coming back, and we actually filmed an Estes method session, and I think we're going to show some of it next week. It's JK47 Paranormal Investigations, otherwise known as Jonathan Keystone. So he's going to be here on the Angel Rock next week. The week after, you may not know her, but you may want to look up her name. It's Dr. Rima Labo. She's been on my show before. We will not be on Facebook because she won't get to broadcast. It's a long story. She's a natural healer, but she's actually a physician. We're going to be talking about this new device that has come out that stimulates the skin receptors, and it's got miraculous with the research that's coming out, making really big differences in healing and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about that. Otherwise, I will see y'all on Thursday with David. Come with your crazy, your wild, your weird, your questions, because you know it's going to be a lot of fun. All right. We'll be back with the thing at the foot of the bed, 7:00 Eastern Standard Time on Thursday. Thank you all so much, and stay tuned for the Horsefly Chronicles. Until then, we'll see you then. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you for having me.
I can't wait to have you back.